His work captures the spirit of the sporting scene.
Everyone that was around Jack knew that he was a giver. He gave of his time, his money, but most especially his talents with that brush.
I had no idea his stature when I came down here, and by the time I figured out who he was and what he was, I was afraid to death to meet him. And he came to my house in Rockport one day and stuck out his hand and said, "Hello, I'm Jack Cowan, let's go fishing." And that was the start of our relationship that lasted for 38 years.
When Jack was in the field, I have to tell you that there was never a dull moment. You couldn't say something to Jack that he didn't have a comeback on, or you couldn't make a move without him saying, "Stop right there, let me get my camera out." And you know, he shot an old Hasselblad that you had to look through like this, and he'd say, "Freeze it right there, I want that shot." And he was forever taking shots in the field with all the friends that he had. And Jack had thousands of friends. I'm just one of thousands of friends that Jack had.
Everybody else thought of Jack as an artist and knew him best as an artist. Jack thought of himself as a fisherman. On that first fishing trip, I said, "Jack, boy, you really are stuck on this fishing, aren't you?" And he said, "Man, if I had one day left to live in my life and knew it, I'd go fishing." And that was the kind of guy he was. And it was his fishing that brought him to conservation. He felt the fishing could tell you whether the environment was good or bad, and if conservation wasn't being practiced, the fishing was bad and he was unhappy.
While Jack Cowan was a great artist, he wasn't consumed by his art the way a lot of the artists that we know and have represented are. The art was sort of an extension of his love of hunting and fishing, and I think that's one of the secrets to his success, that even before he was an artist, and God knows he was as great an artist as Texas will ever see, he was a hunter and a fisherman, and he just had that innate ability through his love of hunting and fishing, particularly fishing, to just capture things that only other hunters and fishermen can appreciate.
Jack loved the outdoors. Jack would much rather be behind a rod and reel stalking a redfish than standing in front of a canvas completing an original. That was the hard work part about being an artist. It's a shame Jack couldn't make a living fishing and hunting, because he probably would have. Jack's love of the outdoors is one reason that he spent so much of his talent for conservation projects, whether it was Ducks Unlimited or Quail Unlimited, or back in the early days, the Coastal Conservation Association, which Jack was one of the original founders of that organization. It was his love of the redfish that Jack wanted to preserve.
His art has become the symbol of conservation in Texas. His own personal conservation efforts in passing the redfish legislation that took the redfish off the commercial fishing list really was the start of a tremendous conservation movement in Texas that's been ongoing now for over 30 years. The Wildlife Conservation Act would probably not have been passed. While it was more encompassing than the Redfish Act, I don't think we could have passed that legislation without Jack and Perry Bass's and Joe Allen's effort on behalf of the redfish.
I think the thing about Jack, though, that began to dawn on me, and that I think is really important for all of us, is that while many of us just consider Jack an artist who painted hunting, fishing, quail hunting, goose hunting, wildlife pictures that we all like and that we're all interested in, that actually what Jack was doing was chronicling an environment, a flora and a fauna. And then if you think about 20 years forward, and you see how much has happened and how that country's evolved, and how right now there's even less room, there's less habitat. Jack has been a part of making a record of all of that. So that to me is the big story on Jack Cowan. And Jack is in the pantheon nationally as an artist who carried out this mission.